Right, it's November the 14th, 2012, and we have with us here Anne Taylor, who's going to give us some of her personal history for the Mining Memories project. Now, Anne, could you just introduce yourself and tell us where you come from originally?
My name is Patricia Ann Taylor, and I lived at number 67 Dale Close, Langwith, originally. Obviously now I've moved to Alfreton in Derbyshire. We did, when I was a very tiny baby, we did live at Upper Langwith in the Pear Tree Cottages. My father was a labourer there before we moved to Dale Close. And then he did another job with a haulage firm, and then he went to the mines, and he was a deputy in the mines.
So how do you remember his original two professions? Do you remember him being a labourer? I presume was it a farm labourer?
Farm labourer, yes. Oh yeah, I used to go with him. He used to do the milking. I used to stand with him. He used to put me at a certain point, and I hadn't got to go beyond that point because of the cows, and because they kicked on whatever. And he did the milking, and then they pasteurised it, and then he delivered it, and I went with him delivering.
So was it all dairy farming that he did? Or
No, they did ploughing of the fields, and there was wheat, and they fetched in, and potatoes, as far as I can remember.
And then he switched to haulage. Do you remember much about
Yeah, he worked for Mr Kettle, and Jennifer Kettle married a Dougie Roberts who lived next door to us, actually, on Dale Close. And Jennifer's dad, my father, worked for him with the lorries, delivering bricks and things like that. Various places up and down the country. He did talk about Desford a lot, and I think that's where the brick depot was.
Did he drive, or did he?
Lorry driver, yeah. It was a very bad era for lorry driving. I mean, today everything's got to be pristine. Tyres have got to be right, everything, because they're pulling them up all the time. In those days, I can remember Dad telling me about the handbrake shaking off after it left the lorry park to go in and fetch some cigarettes, like they smoked then. And it had shook off, and it was going down the road, and it hit a lamppost. But Mr Kettle didn't bother. He used to just send them out. If you want a job, you just got to drive it, even if the brakes weren't good. And that's how it was in them days, because lorries weren't as plentiful as what they are now. I mean, there's queues and queues and queues of lorries, isn't there, on the A38 and on the M1.
Can you describe your family and the house that you first lived in?
At the cottages at Pear Tree Farm, the slabs on the floor, there wasn't a floor, it was like slabs, and it was very damp. I can remember going up the stairs. Mum used to send me up first at night with a candle in a, what do they call them, like a saucer with a handle on, and the candle was about 2 inches big, and I used to walk up the stairs, and you could hear the mice running around on the floors upstairs, and it was all wooden floor. It was open staircase. It wasn't like we have today, all closed in. And I was terrified because I could see through the stairs. Now I was frightened of falling, but my mum used to send me up first, and there was massive, big, long rooms up there. Very cold. You had to have plenty of blankets and covers on. And the mice were running round. And that didn't bother me, because I used to set the traps with Dad downstairs the night before, so we caught them all. And then they'd come in from out of the cold, and we'd get some more the following night.
I think that's because of its rural location, because it was
farm.
Associated with
The
farm.
cottages were backing onto a barn. You could even see the rats running along the gutterings.
And it was at the farm where your father worked?
Yeah.
So it was tied to that?
Yeah.
How old were you when you moved, and why did you move?
I was born in Chesterfield, and I moved there when I was a tiny baby, and we left at 7. Dad had a bit of a disagreement, I think, with the Mr Nicholas, the farmer, about something or other. I can't remember what it was. and he went with Mr. Kettle. So whether he'd been saying he was fed up with being treated the way he was, and Mr. Kettle offered him a job, I don't know, because he didn't say. But I was about 7 when we moved on to Dale Close. 1953. My sister was born that year.
So, how many brothers and sisters?
Just
did you
the
have?
one.
Did you move into Dale Close because was that when he started the haulage work, or was it when he became a miner?
No, when he started the haulage work. The mining came after, because of what was happening with the haulage. He didn't agree with a lot of the things, making him drive lorries that were unsafe and things like that. I mean, today they wouldn't allow it, would they? But so he decided to take a course on shot firing and then deputying, and he passed. But I mean, in his younger years, 1935, he won a prize for an essay that he wrote, and Mr. Brown, who was the headmaster at that time, offered to pay for him to go to grammar school because you had to pay then. But his dad wouldn't let him go, else he would have had a better job than he was on. And it's a good job because Mr. Brown died 3 years afterwards, so he would have been left in the lurch anyway. But I get a lot of my the way I can do things, the way I can pick up on things. I'm not saying I'm clever by any means, but I get it from Dad, because he was quite clever. He could even play the piano without a note in front of him. He just could play the tune because that's the way he was.
Can you describe your kind of early memories, preschool memories of what your life was like? Take us through a day if you can, or what was your family atmosphere like?
When we were at Upper Langworth, you mean? When I first started, I just started school at 5. Dad used to make targets for Mr. and Nicholas, because they used to have a archery club or something. As I say, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he used to make these targets, my dad did, and I used to stand watching him as children do, and I used to go on the tractor with him. I mean, today you wouldn't be allowed because of health and safety again. I can remember falling off the tractor and I went between the wheels, and I can remember that vividly because I was scared to death. I'd only be about 5 or 6, yeah, probably the summer holidays of school. I can also remember being in school when the King died, 1952. We were having music and movement, they called it then, and the radio stopped and they said the King is dead. I can remember that vividly.
Can you describe it? Did you just go to the one school for your...
Langworth Bassett.
Yeah. Can you describe your first day at school, what it was like to start? What was the school atmosphere like?
I think I was scared. I think I cried. I can't remember really. But I loved going to school. I never, very, very rarely had any time off right through my schooling, unless I was ill. I did have time off when I was about 14. I had scarlet fever, but like you get chicken pox and all the normal things, you had to be off then. But I'd never miss school otherwise because I loved going. Yeah.
Could you describe a school day to us that you enjoyed? If you're talking about, are you talking about when I was younger or when I was in my teens? Yeah. I can't remember an awful lot. I can remember music and movement, and I can remember we had a little garden to the one side of the school there, and they used to set things in there, but I can't remember whether they were vegetables or whether it was flowers. And we used to love to play hopscotch and things like that in the playground, and I like to join in everything, really. I've always been that way, very adaptable in a lot of things. What was your favourite subject at school?
Maths. I was always top. Winifred Albrook, who lived at Langworth Junction, there was me and her. Sometimes she was first, and sometimes it was me first, so I had to take the second place there. But vice versa, you know. Yeah.
Do you remember did you win prizes? Do you remember any particular plaudits that
I
you
can't
received?
remember. I can't remember. I know I did get a certificate for proficiency in cycling when I was about probably 12 or 13, something like that, 12, perhaps earlier, I don't know. Might have been 11. Because I used to do shopping for Grandma and Grandad at Whalley Thorns, and then I used to go to Shirebrook when they moved. Grandma died and Grandad went to live with my dad's sister in Shirebrook, and I used to go there and do the shopping for them. I used to get a shilling. And I had a shilling pocket money, so I saved a shilling and I spent a shilling. And I had these little stamps, savings stamps. I don't know what they call them. I can't remember now. Little stick-on stamps, and you got a book. And when I got 2 of these books, I went and bought 2 premium ones when they first come out in 1958.
Were they national savings?
Like a national savings. That's right. You've got it. I forget names sometimes as well.
Did you used to get those from school?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember doing the same thing. Could you describe one of those shopping trips for your grandparents?
I used to go on the bike up there, and then I used to walk, and I used to come back with 2 big bags full of shopping. She used to give me a list.
Where did you used to go? Describe what the shop was like when you got
Um,
and where it was.
They lived on Scott Street, obviously, and the shop opposite was Bennett's. And I used to go in there for her, which wasn't very far to walk. And then the other one was at the other end of Scott Street, right on the corner near the Chippy, and that was Overton's, and I used to go up there and shop for her. Yeah. I can remember going to the cinema with my Auntie Sheila, she was the youngest in my dad's sisters. We went to the Co-op. Was a big, on the main street, great big building. There were grocery and provisions and drapery and all that. Then above it was the cinema, and I can remember going to see that one where they yodeled in it. What was it called? Rosemarie, with the Mounties, the Canadian Mounties.
Howard Keel, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And Anne Blythe, maybe?
I don't know. I can't remember the lady's name.
Can you describe what it was like inside the shop, inside the Co-op? When you went in there, can you remember what it was like?
Yeah, big brown counter, and that was in the Co-op. The other shops, they were brown counters as well, but I can't remember an awful lot of how they served me or anything. But in the Co-op, I can remember them having 2 brown, like, spatulas, if you like, with like lines on, and if you wanted butter, they cut a piece of butter off and they patted it with this and marked it. Then they put it into greaseproof paper and folded it all up for you.
So it wasn't self-service?
Oh no.
So if you were, what kind of things did your grandparents want you to buy from the shop? What was their staple food?
Pass. I can't remember.
Can't remember.
No. I can remember Grandad making bacon, egg and tomatoes, and that was his... I don't know if it was a Saturday or a Sunday, but that was his job. He used to blacklead the fireplace, and then he'd make these bacon, egg and tomatoes, and he never tasted any like it. And I've never tasted them since. Even when I do them myself, they don't taste the same as what Grandad made them, so they probably put a lot of fat in them, didn't they? And it gives the flavour.
Can you describe, as a child, going to school, can you describe your day? Can you describe the process of getting up, going through the day at school, and then all the way to the evening?
Mum was always very particular. We had to have the shoes clean, we had to look tidy, we had to be very clean, wash behind your ears and everything. And I can't remember what I actually wore, but I know I had white socks on. I can remember looking down and seeing white socks and black shoes. In fact, I think I had some brown ones with little flowers cut out in as well. But I can't remember clothing. I can later in, when I was a teenager, because I made some of my own clothes then. But I don't think there was any uniform as such at Bassett. But when I did move from, I went to Worley-Thorns then as I grew up, and then I moved on and I took 13 plus, and I went to Moorfield and I did a 2-year course, commercial course at Moorfield for shorthand and typing.
Can you describe? You obviously got your. You've got a skill in dressmaking in a way, haven't you? If you made your own clothes.
Yeah. I did love.
How did you? What did you do? What did you do? What kind of things did you make, and how did you make?
I made a suit, dresses, pyjamas, shorts.
What did you make them from?
Mum bought the material from. We used to go to Nottingham. Probably about January sales, and we used to buy pieces of material, and she'd let me make things. I used to make stuff at school. We had a 1 day a week as well at school where we could do sewing, and I used to make things in that as well. She was very good. They had Mrs. Bumstead when we were at Moorfield for the domestic science, which was the making of cakes and everything, and I loved that, making Christmas cakes and icing them. And then the needlework, I can't remember the lady's name. I think it was Mrs. No, I can't remember her name. I can see her there very plainly, but she was very good, and she taught us how to do basic sewing, and it encouraged me. And as I say, when I first left school and I started work, I did my own suits for work. I can remember a brown check one, and I lined it with lemon, and the reverse came back with the lemon on, and then I also did a green one, and that had just got binding all the way round, like thin binding all around the edges and that, in lemon, and that was green, and it was like a floral, what we'd say, like kids today would say, oh, you've got your curtains on.
And when you started, what age were you when you started work?
At 15.
And was that in this area? Were you still living
Mansfield.
Right. What's
I was still living at Langworth, and I worked for A.E. Holder, the estate agent, selling houses and doing the cash and building society work and things like that.
So what was the transition like from school to work? How did you go about finding that?
How finding a job? When we were at Moorfield, they were very good with you. They asked you what sort of work you would like to do, and I said I'd like to work in an office. And they had some sort of contact with a lot of employers, or whoever did the research, and there was 2 jobs going at this particular office in the A.E. Holders. He wanted to train 2 juniors up. We had to make the tea when we first started, obviously, and coffee. I loved the coffee, milky coffee. We were allowed to buy milk and make a milky coffee. You didn't have it with water like they do today. And Joyce Harston, who I went to school with as well, we both got this job at 15. I worked there till I was 20, and then someone in another estate agent's enticed me away for more money. And I went to work with for them, John Collins it was. He was a miner originally, and he started off as a estate agent. But I wished I'd never moved. I wished I'd stayed at Alders, because it was kind of monetary wise, and if he went on holiday, he always brought us a present by, all of us in the office. A scarf, Italian scarf, or a makeup, compact, something like that. In fact, I've still got that compact now.
What age were you? What date would that have been when you
I'd be about 16 or 17.
So that would be early 60s.
So, well, I was born in 45, so that's what's 45, 50, 62.
Were you still? When did you move out from Langworth and moved away?
I was 23, and I got married. I got married at Upper Langworth Church. and I had one girl a year later, and we were living in Mansfield, off Southwell Road. We got a council house, because I'd moved out of my family home and moved in with 3 girls, 2 girls and myself, and the flat, and it didn't work out. And then I met my future husband, and we got married, and we moved into a council. We put a name down because I found out I was pregnant, so I put my name down for a council house, and I got it. But we'd been there about 3 years, I think. I couldn't stick it because some of them were I'm not a snob, but some of them were pinching the little girls' toys off the back garden, and it was a bit rough, to say the least. There were a lot of people from Scotland who came to where we lived on Bellamy Road, Southwell Road it was called.
Why was that? Was that following, say, the mining industry from Scotland?
Yeah. There was a big movement then over the mines, because we're shutting them all up in Scotland and Northumberland and all such as that. So after 3 years I stuck it, and I said, I think it's time we moved. So I started looking around for a property to buy, and we bought one in Pleasley, a bungalow. And
what did your husband do for a living?
he was a miner. Yeah, he worked at Rufford colliery. But then we got divorced, and I'd got Elaine. She was about 8, but I stayed in the bungalow, and then eventually I did sell it up when I met my husband, as I've got now. But unfortunately, Peter died. He was only 54 when he died, had a massive heart attack and died.
Was he a
but he
miner
was
too?
a fitter.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a fitter.
In the mines.
Yeah.
What was it like?
My husband now, he was a miner.
So the mining has gone all the way through, both you from your father through. So let's go through each of these sort of mining men in your life. What was it like? You said that your father was a deputy. Did he go straight into being a deputy at the pit?
Yeah, they took qualifications. They had to go to college for it and that, and he, like a course, different to what it is today. I mean, there's not many mines left anyway, is there? So, but he.
Did he? What was it like? What association? What did you know of his life in the pit? Did he talk a lot about it? What kind of things did he describe?
The one of the things that I do remember is the strikes. And when he came home very distressed, he got a black coat on and he had to take it outside, and my mum got a bucket of water because the men had spit all over him, because he was a deputy, but he was a miner and he lived in the village, and that's how it was. It was very... And even my mum used to play bingo, and she used to go to the cinema. They changed it in above the co-op. They changed it into a bingo hall, and she used to go there. And she was ever so lucky. And one day she won £1,000, and she had to go up onto the stage to get this cheque. She says, "I'm not going on." She says, "Not with strike being on and everything, they'll mob me," and they all milled round her. And perhaps cut a long story short, but Auntie Annie Smith, her name was, they lived up near the school on Portland Road there on the Church Street side. And she was a very big buxom woman, and nobody argued with her. And she was in the bingo hall at the same time as my mum, and she could see my mum was distressed. So she just stood there with her arms folded, and she said to my mum, "You walk on, Gladys. Move back. Walk on, Gladys." That's all she said. It were like, she says, it were like the parting of the waves. Everybody backed off. She says, I was terrified. And that's how it was. It put man against man when they started these strikes. Terrible.
And what was it like as an atmosphere? Because presumably you were surrounded by miners. Was there an atmosphere in the street where you lived? Or?
Where we lived up there close, it wasn't so bad, because some of them were miners, but some of them had got other occupations. So, and we tended to keep ourselves to ourselves a bit, anyway. But up the Wally Thorn side, it was very... not agitated, that's the wrong word. Tense.
So which of the strikes are we talking? Which sort of year?
Well,
Which one?
I think there was one in 74 and one in 84, wasn't there?
Mm.
The 84 one, I was at Pleasley then, and some men went to work, some didn't, and those that went to work were frowned upon and called scabs and all sorts of things, horrible names, but we got through it. I used to make bread, and the vicar used to call round and fetch some of my bread because he could smell it as he was coming up the street. We made ourselves self-sufficient. We bought what we could, and then if neighbours had got something plentiful, we'd share. You know, I'd give what I'd got extra, and they'd give me, and then I could make cakes, or I could make apple pies, and if they got plenty of apples off the trees and things like that, plums.
Well, just wind back slightly because there's a difference there. Because your father, he was a deputy, and that was that a different union in 1974 strike?
Yeah, I think the deputies had a different union to what the men had. You see, my dad was a deputy, but my husband wasn't. He was a fitter, so it's a different union.
So that meant that as a result that your father was in work.
He had to go. Management, they called it.
And then the in the 1984 strike, that was your second husband. Is that right? In 1984, and he was the fitter, as you say. And was he a member of the NUM or the UDM, and did he strike?
I believe so. Yes, he did. He tried to go to work, but he couldn't hack it. You know what they were saying and that. So he walked through them once, but I think the ill feeling that was there, you just, unless you were there, he said you couldn't explain how he felt. So we did what we could. I always set the garden anyway. I used to do my own veg, tomatoes and everything, like my dad, because I'd been brought up with it, beans and things. So what we got plenty of, like beans, I could grow a big row of beans. Nobody else sent to grow them on the street, so they used to bring me things that I hadn't grown, and I used to share. I used to give them what I'd grown. You know, we used to swap, look after each other.
So as you say, you became more or less self-sufficient because
we tried to. Yeah, I mean, there were some days we used to think, we ain't got only a few bob left. But you managed, you got through.
Where did you get the money from? Any money that was coming in from?
No, we had to have it out bank, what we've got in bank. You didn't get anything.
You didn't get strike pay from the union or anything? No. Was everyone else more or less in the same boat? It sounds like they were.
Yeah, you had to draw on your savings.
And was there a lot of trouble from the outside as a result of that? Did your husband have to attend sort of picket lines, those kinds of things?
They asked them to, but he didn't agree with it, you see, so he didn't go. No. Some of them did, some of the miners. Shirebrook, it was, you could see it on the television now, they went off, but no. It was same, I think to a certain extent Langworth did, but you see, my dad had to go. But, you know, it's very difficult.
Was your father retired by the time of the 84 strike?
He finished 78, I think, Langworth Pit shut. He finished about 76 through ill health. He got cancer, but we never knew until he were dying in 87, because he'd had it from being about 51. And it was 87. It was just on the part where your lung is. It's fancy names. I can't remember names.
Do you think that was to do with the mining industry?
Probably, yeah. A lot of people have been claiming, and I've never bothered. Me and my sister, we're not interested. We've got our own savings. We don't want to fleece anybody.
Well, I mean, they would say that, you know, it was an industrial injury, wouldn't they? And they're due to that. But your second husband, you said, died of cancer. Is that correct?
No, heart attack.
Oh, it's a heart attack. Did he suffer with any of the mining-related diseases?
No, not as far as I know, because I was divorced from him by then.
Right.
Yeah.
But your second husband, he's...
My husband now, yeah, he's never been to the doctors till he was 60 in his life. And then he found out he got diabetes, but no. Mining, and apparently when anybody passes away that's been a miner, you have to have a post-mortem nowadays. I didn't know that, because we had a friend die round the corner, and he said that his sister said that he'd had to go for a post-mortem, which was a bit shocking, really, because you can't think about somebody being interfered with in that way for science.
When your father went to work and he was coming home, presumably by then they had pit head baths, did he? So he didn't come home.
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to come fetch him when I first had a car, about 1963, I think it was. Wait a minute. I was 20, so to be 65. And I used to come fetch him from the pit when he was on afters, because he was poorly just before he finished work. And I used to wait for him coming across, and he used to walk from the pit across the road and then up into the baths, like a walkway at Langworth. And he would sit in the car park and wait for him coming, and then take him home, because it was about, I should say, he'd need about half an hour to walk how he was, because his breathing was terrible with it being where it was, the cancer. But you see, we didn't know. He'd not told nobody. He didn't want nobody to know. But that's how they were then. I mean, I've had cancer when I was 57, and I had radiation treatment and chemotherapy, and I'm still here. So
it's different now.
Shows, marvellous, wonderful, absolutely.
What did your mother do? Did she work, or did she?
She was on the home help, but she used to work up Woodlands at Langworth there, and she used to look after the old people, and get them up, make the fires. She used to do a lot of extras, like bringing the curtains home and washing them for them, and the cushion covers. She shouldn't have done, but she did. She used to like it, but it wasn't that much pay. It was funny, because when she'd finished, and they said, "Oh, you've got a pension," and it was 11p a week. I thought it was rather funny. And then Dad's pension, they said it come off my dad's pension or something. I didn't understand it, because it was all to do with what they contributed. A male, you could get pension for the female, but it was all paid to the male, and the females and the males was paid together, wasn't it? Whereas now you get it in your own right, same as I do.
What kind of as a youngster, what kind of sort of social activities do you enjoy doing in that mining community in Langworth? Which ones did you enjoy?
I used to go to the dances at Warleythorne School. I used to go to the dances at Shirebrook. 6 hop, I think it was called, one in a tanner hop, as my dad used to call it. There was one at the Elite and one at Central Hall. And they were jiving and that when they were in teens and such like. Used to wear a big skirt with plenty of layers of taffeta underneath, that my mum made me an underskirt in layers, so that when I spun round, you could see all this underskirt under the, like they call it, well, they call it a full circle skirt, and you cut it out in a big full circle like that. There was no joins in it, and then just put the waistband onto it.
So were you good at dancing? Did you
I've always loved dancing. My dad used to like ballroom dancing, and such. He taught me a lot of the steps at the welfare at Langworth Junction Social Club.
Excellent. And is that where you met your first husband, at one of these dances, or? How did you meet your first husband? Let's put it that way.
So I can't remember. Think.
Was he someone that you grew up with? Was he always around? Or?
He came from Wrexham, he was Welsh, and I think what happened, him and his brother came to a party that we were at, because there was a big crowd of us. You used to have parties at different houses and move around, and he came to one of these parties and they introduced me to him. I think one of the miners that were there, because obviously he was a miner and his brother, they introduced me. That's how I got to know him.
Mm-hmm. And what about your second husband? How did you meet him?
Sherlin Golf Club. Yeah, dancing again. Yeah.
So, did you play golf as well, or
no?
You just went for the dance? Did he play golf?
No. They just loved the dancing, both of us. We still do now, but with me, when I was ill with the cancer, I'm afraid it's been pushed on one side a bit, the dancing. We don't go out so much now. And as we get older, we get nescia, so it's cold at night, so we stop in. We go out in the summer. We've gone abroad a lot, to be honest. So.
What were your holidays like as a child? What did you do?
Cleethorpes, Carrington Camp. It was like chalets, like Butlins were. And they had a paddling pool and they had a boating lake. I used to love to row the boats. And we were lucky that we went to Cleethorpes, really. I can remember the train station there and the smell from the steam from the train when it stopped, when we got off. And it was a unique smell that you could smell it, same as when I used to go swimming to Cresswell Baths. I used to get on the train at Dale Close Maltings, as it was now. It's moved up to Whalley Thorns, the railway station, but I used to walk across there onto the black pad and catch the train and have a penny ride, and then I can't remember how much it was to go in baths, but we used to go swimming and we used to love it. Yeah.
Is it where the swimming baths is now?
Cresswell?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I haven't been to Cresswell for a long time. As I say, this is the first time I've been for it.
It's next to the churchyard. It's on one side of the road and the...
No, I don't. I think it's moved then.
Brilliant. I don't know whether you want to ask any questions, or we could carry on. Do you want to have a
No.
pause there, or do you want to...
No, not really. I think she's just gone through very, very
Honestly?
gently some of the things that Anne brought up. I can sort of relate to the things that she was saying, and one of the things I notice now, that girls can't even turn up a pair of curtains or something, you know, and yet our generation, it was something that you always did.
Was it something that your mother taught you?
I loved it at school as well,
Yeah.
and I think it stemmed from school.
Yeah.
The needlework teachers were good, and it stemmed from there. My grandchildren, come up now. Can you turn me these trousers up? Because the mother, yeah, they don't know how to do it.
My first job was we had a Singer sewing machine my mother bought, and of course it was a hand sewing machine.
Mine was.
So my sister worked in the Meridian factory on a high-powered industrial machine, and used to go to the market in Worksop at Saturday morning, and at Saturday evening she would go out with a brand new outfit onto the pally in Worksop. But when you were talking about the layers and layers of lace, she used to put them on, and I was the handle, you know, I was the engine, if you like. Go faster, go faster, go faster. I was only 5 and she was 17, you know, so you were, very often when you were young, you were expected to be responsible and older, if you know what I'm saying, like when you were saying stand back from the cows, and you did as you told you, that you were allowed and not allowed to do certain, you know, certain things.
I can remember when I first used a sewing machine, it's gone now, but I had a ridge in that thumb there, and the needle went straight into my thumb, went half moon. and it festered up. It was terrible. Never did it again.
But I mean, you're talking about the teachers and.
I'm just going to pause you there, because what I want to do is to ask Anne, because we're going to interview you later on. We're going to ask Anne, is there anything else that you wanted in this session to specifically talk about? Is there anything that you want to cover?
Well, I can remember the pit ponies on the hill. I used to love to go and feed them and stand stroking them. I can remember that very much. Same as the chippy. There's a chippy just under the bridge from where the Dale Close had got two bridges at either end of the road, and the right-hand bridge was where the Robin Hood line is now. And they used to go under there, and the chippy was just on the left. And it were 1 and 6, a shilling for the fish and 6pence for the chips. And we used to love them. Probably cooked in horrible fat instead of oil. But we used to love it, and there's 2 big houses built there now. It's gone.
Was that a treat or
Treat?
Yes.
Well, we had certain days when we had fish and chips, and it was usually Fridays. So, if Mum had been busy or she didn't make the fish and chips herself, she used to send us down to the chip shop, or as an extra meal, if we'd got some spare cash, she used to say, instead of having what we were going to have that particular day, she'd say, well, do you want to have a walk down to Chippy with Karen? That was my sister. And I used to walk down there, because there was 8 years between us. So I used to walk down with her, and we used to go and fetch them. And she said, and don't stop talking to anybody, come straight back, because they'll be cold. I can hear her saying that now. Yeah.
What about sweets? Did you enjoy sweets? Was there a sweet shop?
I can remember Mars bars and things like that, but we didn't have them very often because we hadn't got the money. There were treats if we had them. I can remember Sundays was a treat where we had the Ovaltinis on at 6:30 at night.
What were the Ovaltinis?
Ovaltinis. It was like a sing-song. Yeah, we are the Ovaltinis. Girls and boys.
Was that a radio programme, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We hadn't got the telly till the year after, I think, we had the telly. And that was a big, bulky thing with great big knobs on, and you could hardly see it. You had to be near it to see it.
How old were you when you got your first television?
I think I'd be about 45, about 9.
So did you get it for the coronation, or was it?
Well, we moved in the June when the coronation was on, into that house in Dale Close. It was brand new. It was lovely. We had a bathroom. We didn't have one at the other house. We used to have a tin bath in front of the fire. And my sister was born in the October of 53, and it was the following year, I think, we first had a telly.
So that was 54.
Yeah,
so
yeah. But I'm trying to think if I could remember any other things. There was a van used to come round called Cherries Ice Cream. From Bolsover, he used to make his own, and it was lovely ice cream. They used to make nice, like a frozen lolly, like we have an orange stick now. These were milk, and they were made with milk. Oh, they were lovely. And Dad used to say, he'd hear noise, and he'd say, oh, can we have ice cream? Can we have ice cream? And he'd say, is it cherries? No. Well, I don't want one then, he'd say. Because he didn't like any. He only liked the cherries ice cream. But he'd always have to have a wafer. Mm.
When you say a wafer, it's like a sandwich?
Yes.
An ice
Yeah.
cream sandwich.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you remember your mum's co-op number?
Co-op number, no. I used to, but I forgot what it is now. Mm.
I can remember mine.
That were like religion. Didn't matter if you forgot your name, police would get you back home, but don't forget your mum's co-op number. Your grand's
We used to
co-op
go and
number.
get divvy, didn't we?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, you could have one set of clothes at Whit and another set for Christmas.
Mm.
And it all come off at dinner.
I was always having an anniversary dress for Easter.
Yeah.
Because I used to go to the, I don't know whether it was it wouldn't be Methodist, I don't think. At Langworth Junction, near the co-op there was a big hut, and we went in there, and they used to have like benches and the different levels, and we used to sit on them for the anniversary, and we had a lovely dress.
Yeah.
Was that?
I've still got photos of that dress when I got that dress on.
Was it a Baptist church? 'Cause they
It
had an
might have been.
anniversary.
It might have been. Yeah. I
So
can't
did you
remember.
go to did you go to church?
Mum never let us go to the main church because she said it was too high a church. One of the reasons, I think, you know, when you go, like if you go to Catholics as well, they waft this incense about, and it used to make us feel sick. My mum said she hated it, so that's why we didn't go. I mean, I wouldn't say she wasn't religious in any way, but she just wouldn't go
So you went to chapel instead?
to that chapel
Did you go every
at
week?
Langwest Junction. Yeah. Yes, I did. But I can't remember an awful lot about it apart from these steps and sitting on these steps and singing, you know. I can't even remember tunes that we sang or, what do you call it, hymns, whatever. Can't remember.
Did you go to Sunday school as well? Afterwards, what was that like?
You made a lot of friends, and I think it was a social thing more than a religious thing. Because as time went on, religion had been pushed further and further to the background, and I mean, going back when I do family history research now, it revolved around Sunday, but it doesn't anymore, and it didn't. It was getting, in the 50s, it was going further and further away from it. I mean, if you talk about 1890s, that's all they did. It was Sunday, and you weren't allowed to do anything on a Sunday. Even in 50s, I don't think shops weren't open, were they, on a Sunday? So
Not even up until the 80s.
I also can remember a Mr. French coming up with this. We used to call him Frenchy. He used to come up with a horse and cart, and it was like a big dray, and on the dray, it got like sections with food in and apples and oranges and things like that, and you could buy quite a lot of different things from him. And then he eventually bought a lorry, and it was set out the same. Yeah, we used to call and say, "Would you want anything off a Frenchie?" It was funny because I used to like the horse. I love animals.
Brilliant. We'll pause there and
Okay.
come back if there's time. But thank you very much for that.
I hope I've done all right.